Hey, welcome back to Make More Music, the podcast that connects people to music and one another. If you're new here, my name's Chris and I'm a board-certified music therapist, and I interview different music and music-related field professionals to show all kinds of career paths and options and ways that you can make a living and have a rich life through music and with music. Today I've got something a little unique and a little different though, but before I get into that, I just want to say thank you. We're 1 month in, we're approaching 1,000 downloads, and it's just so encouraging that we're already like charting on Apple Music or Apple Podcasts. And Argentina, we're high up in the music category in the country of Argentina. So Argentina, thank you. We're all over the world. I see people in Spain, United Kingdom, South Africa, Australia, all over the world listening in, and I'm kind of just blown away by that too. So thank you for listening. If you haven't already, please consider giving a rating and review. It's the easiest, simplest, and freest way that you can support the show. So we're going to keep cranking out some episodes here and some cool conversations. But if you haven't already, you can join the community on Instagram at make.more.music. As I mentioned, today's going to be a little bit different. Instead of someone who's working in the music industry right now, I have someone who I first met as a patient of music therapy. And Max, I get to walk alongside his battle of leukemia through treatment and through bone marrow transplant. And he gets all into the nitty gritty of that. But it was cool to meet this guy who already was singing, already playing trumpet, and just to empower that and see how his infectious positivity and faith just inspired so many people, got him notice on the news. Max is just one of those people that once you're around him, you're like, oh, you're just one of those people that like just is magnetic. People are drawn to him. So let's hop right into the interview. Here's my friend, Max Jones. All right, Max. Well, I'm super glad to chat with you. I'm first glad that we selfishly just get to catch up, but B, I'm just glad to hear your story again. I don't know anyone who doesn't feel encouraged when we're around you. So before we kind of get into how we met and all the things you've kind of gone through to get you to here, I want to ask some questions that I know I've asked at some point before, but let's go way back to the beginning. So I know your family is full of music lovers and music fanatics and everything like that. But talk me through, what do you remember, or even some of your first music memories?
Man, my first music memories would have to come from my grandmother. I call her my mammy. My mammy, she played the piano, she played the organ, and she always has wanted to learn other instruments. So she's always kind of introduced that into my life, and it brought me up with music. One of my earliest memories is she was learning how to play the violin, and she let me take the bow of it, and I just kind of ran it across the strings, and I pretended like I was playing Flight of the Bumblebee. I don't know why I knew that song. I was like 5. So that's like one of the earliest memories. But she would always teach me how to play piano whenever she could. Being in separate states, her being in Illinois and me being in Florida, we kind of got separated when I was 6 or 7. But I've always kept up that music, and whenever she'd come to visit, we'd play together and make a lot of memories.
So you're shredding on the violin a little bit, and then she's teaching you piano. So piano was actually your first instrument?
Yeah, I'd say that was my first. And I don't know how her, her lessons went. I don't know where she got them, but they were kind of like very intuitive for a 5-year-old like me. Because she would kind of trace my hand and she would put a number to each of my fingers. I remember doing that. And every time she would come, we'd have to redo it. And she'd put the sheet music up and she'd write the little numbers of the fingers underneath the notes on the sheet music. And we would go through it really slowly, and I'd always want to like get going faster. Like I want to learn more songs, Mammy. Be like, no,
Yeah,
let's perfect this one first. And so
that's
she kind of
cool.
I installed kind of a perfectionist, motif in me.
Want to get it right, want to get
Exactly.
it perfect. So, how long before you started picking up other instruments, and what other instruments did you get into along the way?
She, like I said, she tried playing a lot of instruments, and if we were around each other, she would try to get me into them. So I remember one time she was trying to learn the guitar, which she never has quite learned yet. But I remember
Yet,
when
yeah.
she visited, she had this book with a DVD, and I had a little guitar, and she had a guitar, and we'd watch this DVD together, and we tried to play guitar. But I've to this day, I can't get my hand around the guitar. So that was another one. I think the next instrument would be the trumpet. When I was in sixth grade, I got into a band class expecting to play percussion, but
Oh, same exact story.
yeah. But my teacher had a strict kind of policy about people playing percussion. He said you have to learn another instrument before and I'll choose you to play percussion if that calls for it. Which I think nowadays meant if you suck at everything else, I'll just put you on percussion.
That's good.
So
That's good.
he kind of forced me into playing trumpet, and I played it that first day, made a little noise on it, and I was hooked ever since. And I just kind of kept it going to this day.
Cool. And that's really became your like number one,
Mm-hmm.
you would say, right?
Yeah, and I a close second would be singing too. I've sang a lot, especially with my grandmother, because we every Christmas she would in the family Christmas gathering we'd have before we opened presents, always before we opened presents, we'd have a sing along with the whole family, and she would always make me like the conductor in the singing. I'd always lead all the family in singing all the Christmas carols and stuff. So singing was also a big part of my musical talents.
And what kind of stuff were you singing? What kind of stuff were you playing? I know your background a little bit, but what kind of music were you getting into in middle school and through high school, and what stuff are you performing and things like that?
In middle school, it was mainly the trumpet. I didn't really sing because that time your voice is kind of changing, and yeah,
Yeah.
you don't
Yeah.
really sound like a good singer. So I put singing on hold a little bit and focused on the trumpet. And then in my school, we had the symphonic band, which was symphonies and classical music, but also the best of that band was put into the jazz band, which I knew nothing about jazz before seventh grade. And my band teacher, Mr. Hart, came up to me and he said, "Listen, I hear you have great tone, and you just picked up this instrument. I want you to be in the jazz band. I want to make you second chair as a seventh grader," which in my school was like it never happened. So I
That's
was
cool.
really honored to be that second chair. And then first month of that class, I knew that like jazz would be kind of my main love with the trumpet.
Yeah.
It was such a way to like express yourself in such a beautiful way.
So, who are still some of your favorite jazz trumpeters?
Oh my gosh, Maynard Ferguson has to be number one. I even have
That's your trumpet,
my
right?
trumpet is a Maynard Ferguson Holton ST 550, which was my uncle's, because him and my father were both in a jazz band. My father was a drum player, and my
Mm.
uncle was a trumpet player. And when I started to learn the trumpet, and I didn't own one, my uncle said, "Hey, I don't play mine anymore. You can have mine." And lo and behold, it was Maynard Ferguson, a Maynard Ferguson trumpet. I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is like perfect." So,
Yeah.
Maynard Ferguson definitely. Um, Arturo Sandoval was also
Mm.
a big person I listened to just because of his. Maynard had the high notes, the screaming, and he'd just play
Yeah.
as loud as he could, and he was just a big, character. But Arturo Sandoval kind of took that, and he not only had the range of Maynard and just had a better tone and more of a how do you say that,
Like nuance.
nuance and skill. Like he would do those runs up and down the chromatic scale and different kind of
Yeah.
weird scales, and it was just the knowledge that he had in his vocabulary was just very influential on how I've wanted to play.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So I know you've picked up you play ukulele a little bit too, right?
Yeah.
And so where all have you been able to perform singing, trumpet, any other things? Take me through some of your highlight reel of performing.
I mean, obviously schools and school performances. When I was in school, there was always an all county jazz band, all county symphonic band. So I was always auditioning for those and getting in, and those were a lot of fun because they would bring in, a guest director from anywhere from like the university to, I remember one year he was a big band leader in Los Angeles. So it was
That's
really
cool.
cool for them to come in and give us some tips and stuff how to play. So that was
Yeah.
probably one of the coolest trumpet things I've done. But the biggest trumpet thing I've done is I've played at my church. I don't even know how many years, but I play the offertory and things, and that's mainly my performances nowadays. Trumpet.
Yeah. And you still get to do that a lot?
Uh-huh. Um,
Great.
I had to take a break because of my diagnosis, but
Yeah.
coming back and having that family that were praying for me and hoping I could come back, and I was welcomed back with open arms, and it was such a great reunion.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's been amazing to see all the support you've had. And I think that's probably a good segue into how we met.
Yeah.
So I have my side of the story, but I'd love to hear even before like the moment that you bumped into this guy, what was going on in your life? What was those weeks and those months? Because you were a freshman in college or a sophomore in college?
Yeah, it was my first year out of high school. I was going to UCF. It was the fall of 2018, and like somewhere near the end of November, I remember I woke up one morning and my rib just hurt so much. Like it was just a very painful feeling, and I had like done nothing. And
I just
I'd just go
slept.
to class, and
Yeah.
I'd come home, I'd do homework, and I'd go to sleep. And I woke up, and it was this terrible pain. I was like, "What did I do?" I was like, "Okay, I'll take some Tylenol and I'll go to class and tough it out." But I expected it to go away after like a week or two, but it didn't. So we made a doctor's appointment, and I went to the doctor, and he took an X-ray and looked me around, felt it, and he said, it was probably just it's called costochondritis. It's probably just like inflammation in your rib. A lot of people get it. You probably got it. You stretched it or something. And all I can tell you to do is to, take some pain meds and do some stretches, and hopefully it'll go away in like a couple weeks. Which that's what I thought in the first place. So I did what he told me to do. But not only did it like get worse, but it had spread to multiple ribs.
Ah.
So that was probably the first red flag that something was kind of up, and it had gotten so bad I couldn't take like a deep breath. I had very short breaths, and like sneezing or coughing would just like make me double over in pain. So that was from November where it started. It got to the point where I said I can't do this anymore. I need to go back to the doctor. That was in, I think, mid-January of 2019 or 2020. 2018. It was October of
Yeah, there you
17,
go. Yeah, yeah. I was
January of
like,
2018.
I think it was earlier than
Yeah.
that. Maybe not. Okay.
Um,
So you're a pre-nursing student
mhm.
and you're feeling all this pain. Is that the point when you're starting to like feel a little wigged out, or what's going on in your
Yeah,
head?
well, like feeling it everywhere and it not going away was kind of really weird to me and my family. They were all worried about it. So I finally said, I need to go back to the doctor. And we went. Said, if it's spreading like this, we need to run some more tests. So I'm going to get you a bone scan and we're going to do some blood work. So I went to go get the bone scan done. And they inject you with a dye. And then you sit in a machine. You have to sit still for like
Mm,
45 minutes to an hour while this little thing slowly goes over your body. And the guy that was performing the bone scan was looking at the results as they were coming off the scanner, and he looked at me and said, "Man, your ribs are like completely black, which I have never seen before, ever in the history of me doing this job." Which that was
mm.
like the second red flag, and it was a pretty big red flag. So
Oh, cool.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
and so we went from that, and a couple of days later, the doctor called us back in to hear the results, and that's when he told me and my sister and my mom that went with me to that doctor's visit that I most likely had leukemia, and
Mm,
he told me I needed to go to the hospital right away. You need to go home, grab some clothes, go to the emergency room, and we went
mm,
there. We spent the whole night in the emergency room until they could get me a room in the adult ward.
mm,
So I stayed in the adult ward for a couple days while they confirmed the diagnosis, and then once they confirmed it on February 5th, they diagnosed me with acute lymphoblastic leukemia, and then they also gave me a choice. I could stay in the adult ward and get a treatment that anybody would get as an adult, or I could go to the pediatric ward where I would get like a more personalized, more intense treatment, which we opted for, which
yeah.
was a really, I think, wise choice in the end. It was definitely different than the adult ward.
Yeah.
Instead of 5 or 6 year olds, these nurses are dealing with a 19-year-old, which I'm sure they all adored.
Yeah. Yeah. It was definitely a welcome change. So you you hear leukemia. How much do you already know of what's going on, and how much are you already like? What are you thinking at that point?
I was really shocked at first. Those first couple seconds when my doctor told me that we think it's leukemia. I was really shocked, but after a couple seconds, I just felt this peace in me, and I just said to myself, this is all going to be okay. Um,
Mm,
I'm going to get through this, and I'm going to get through it even stronger than I started. So that
there
was
you go.
that was kind of from the
What do
beginning.
you think? Oh yeah, yeah. That you like pretty much right away. You kind of had this steadfastness.
Yeah.
Then, what would you attribute your confidence going through everything? Because I would say the whole time I knew you, there were definitely terrible
Yeah.
days, and there were days that you hated life, you hated the people that worked with us. Uh, but what do you think gave you all of that confidence?
Um, I'm a believer, and so obviously,
Mm,
God, having faith in God and hearing about it all my life and being a believer, I knew in my heart that He was there. He was protecting me. He was right by my side. And also just all the words of encouragement that I got from my friends and family, even people I barely even knew, saying, we're praying for you. You're in our thoughts and prayers. Getting, accounts from other people saying, "Oh, a friend of mine went through this and he's doing a-okay today." Just a lot of that really, really helped me in
yeah.
my overall demeanor.
Yeah. So your personal faith, you kind of like, it's cool to hear you had that moment of like, it's going to be good.
Hmm.
I'm going to be taken care of. And then just people pouring into you and sharing that story, which I think is a good transition for also how you kind of walked through that whole journey. So I know I probably met you maybe the first or second week,
Yeah, I think it
but
was probably the
you were,
second. Yeah.
yeah, you were already like big on the, like, we're posting about this, we're talking about this, I'm sharing my perspective and what I'm doing. So talk me through that a little bit about kind of like that mentality shift that you had going through everything. And then let's get into what is it like to be, like you said, you're in a pediatric hospital, you're now going through cancer care. What does that mean on a day to day for somebody who doesn't know?
What was the first question? You said how
How did you keep that so we're going to talk about, go ahead and tell me about what it's like on a day to day. And then how did you make those decisions to speak life, to be confident, live truth? And you were encouraging other people. So how did in the spite of the day to day that goes on, and you can talk as much as you want about what it's like to do all the different things. How did you stay so encouraging, to take encouragement and give encouragement?
um I think most of my life I've been a kind of a private person. I've got a high pain tolerance, so if I'm like a little bit in pain, I don't really talk about it. Um, I just don't like showing people that I don't know. I just don't like showing, I guess, weakness. I wouldn't. That's the word
Yeah.
I would say right now. Um, I just like being an example for people going through this. That it's not all terrible, even though I may be feeling the worst I've ever felt in my life. I am living. I know that they're doing this for a reason. I know I'm going through this for a reason, and I know that there's a brighter future waiting for me. So I've always kind of looked ahead and said, I know I'm feeling it right now, but a month or two from now, it's gonna be worth it. And I'm going to be feeling better.
Yeah. Wow. I try to even get you to pull out, what are some of those down moments? What are some of the things you had to go through? And your mind goes, nope, it might have been terrible, but I knew I was going to get through it. I think that speaks to your personality as well. So you're getting dressing changes, you're having all these little small procedures to get things done and taken care of. And then probably a week or two later, you get a knock on the door and I show up. So tell me what that is like.
Well, the person who kind of, I think, brought us together would be a nurse. Her name was Jen. And I remember she would take care of me, and we were talking about what I do fun and what my hobbies were. And I said, I play the trumpet, I sing, and I do all this stuff musically. And she was like, I bet you'd like Chris. I'm gonna see what I can do. And I was like, okay, I don't know who Chris is. So then the next day or a couple days later, I get a knock on the door, and it's you. And you come in with your guitar and you're controlling a thing of like tambourines and percussion instruments. I was like, okay, here's this guy. Let's see what happens. Because I got being in a pediatric ward, like you were saying, you get a lot of knocks on the doors of
Yeah.
like big people in like animal suits or like superheroes come knocking on the door expecting like a 6-year-old child. And they get through the door.
You're a grown man.
I'm a grown man sitting in his bed. I'm just like, hey.
Would you like to meet Dora the Explorer today?
Yeah, exactly. And of course, my mom would be like, get up and take a picture with them. Get up there.
That's awesome.
Oh my gosh. But, that's life on a pediatric ward.
For sure.
But so that's what I was kind of going with. This guy with a guitar, he's probably going to come in here and like sing like these kid songs with me. I'm just like, oh my gosh. But then I don't know how we found out, but you told told us somehow that you were a worship leader. And so me and my mom kind of thought up, you know what you should do? You should record a video for the church of you singing like a worship song. And I was like, yeah, that'd be awesome. So we recorded that first video, and that's where it started. You know, that's where I really had a good friendship with you. I knew I was like, oh my gosh, this guy's awesome. And whenever he comes in here, I'm gonna have a good time.
Yeah, and we did that a lot. About every single time, unless you were having like a truly awful day. Mm-hmm. Which, I mean, during the bone marrow transplant, there were some times where you were like, I don't even really want to see you today. But
yeah.
We would record a video or two mm-hmm. every time. So talk about the purpose of those videos and what you did with them and what became of that.
Like I said before, I played at my church weekly, and I was kind of I was the only problem. We have a piano, we have an organ, and we have a guitar and the drums. That's all we have. And so having a trumpet was kind of like a really big like, thing of the service. Like, yeah, yeah. I was like, wow. It woke people up, you know?
Yeah.
So not having that there, a lot of people were, you know, kind of wondering like, oh my gosh, how is he? Is he okay? I had a lot of people praying for me. And so the basis of the first video that we did was to kind of say, hey, I'm in here, I'm doing fine, and I'm praising God. I'm not worrying about anything. I'm not, you know, being down about my situation. I know that God has a plan, and I know that we're going through this for a reason. So we made that video, and I talked directly to the church because I knew they were going to play it during the service. Mm-hmm. I said hello, and I told them everybody not to worry. I thanked them for all their prayers. I don't remember the song we sang, but I remember it was a Southern gospel song, which
we did so many.
We did a lot. So many. I want to say, what a day? No, I don't know. It was a gospel song, and I remember hearing back from all the people that had seen it that Sunday morning, them messaging me and just saying how much of a blessing that was to them. You know.
And then we just kept the trainer rolling and taking videos. Even if we had just mostly had a conversation one whole session, then we'd be like, oh, yeah, we got to shoot a video before. Well, your mom would say, yes. Wait, you've got to take a video. So we'd take a video. And then how in the world did the whole thing unravel to where it's on HLN or whatever?
So that was my aunt Janan, who watches HLN every morning. And they had that segment I think it's called The Drop of Sunshine in the Morning or something like that.
Ray of Sunshine. Yeah.
And they try to like put like a motivational kind of little clip. And she saw that video of us singing together. I think it was Somewhere Beyond the Sea.
Yeah.
There's that kind of jazzy tune. And she said, you know, this would be like perfect for that segment. So she emailed the show, and they got back to her, and they had to go through, you know, HR and all that stuff with the hospital. I had to sign some papers, but eventually it got up there. And that's how that came.
Yeah, that was pretty wild. Yeah. So, you know, you're in and out of the hospital several times a month, and next thing you know, you're on like Ray of Sunshine, you know, Wake Up America or whatever it is. Yeah. I was like, leave it to Max. He's super famous. Because I remember when I first walked in, the first day I met you, you're like, oh, yeah, I've got this guitar over here in this case. I can't remember if it was in the case or if it was at home or whatever. But you're like, yeah, I've got this guitar. It was Willie Nelson's. I was like,
Willie Nelson, Martin.
Yeah. Yeah, I was like, who are you? Who is this kid?
I got
like
that.
A college
I had just
freshman. Yeah, I remember that. You knew his bus driver or something?
Yeah, the bus driver went to our church, and he heard about me, I guess, on the road, and gave me that. While I was in the hospital, he's like, I know you can't probably use your lips and stuff because that's kind of germy. Play the trumpet while you're in the hospital, but maybe you can pluck around with this guitar. So
yeah,
he give you that.
Yeah. So I was like, what? I think that was the first day I met you. I was like, what? You have Willie Nelson's guitar in here.
Yeah.
Go take that home. What are you doing? So you're going through treatments. Tell me kind of about what was going on through there. We ended up doing a lot. You and I ended up writing a song together. We recorded that. I think we'll play that at the end so people can hear that. But so tell me about like tell me about the rest of your treatment. What kind of happened from there?
So yeah, I got to the pediatric ward. I started chemo the first day I was there. So in that first month, I stayed in the hospital the entire time while they, killed my immune system, gave me every chemo they could, and just to, just blast those leukemia cells away. And then after that, I got to go home. Every couple weeks, I'd come back for a chemo or something like that, stay in the Ronald McDonald House. And that first month was probably the worst of the leukemia treatment, just because it's just such a change for your body. It's just so drastic,
Yeah.
You feel like crap. You have nausea. You don't want to move. You don't want to get up and walk, which you should. It's very easy to get down in the dumps.
Yeah.
But having one come in and cheer me up, and play some music, and I can be musical again. That makes me happy. Two wonderful nurses who come around. We talk about my school and education, and we talk about what their classes were like, how their how much they studied and how hard it was. But I always had a good conversation with them. So a combination of that, and plus just the positivity of the ward itself, the other kids that are going through worse things than I am, and they're still just as positive. That's just very humbling, and
it's pretty amazing.
It is amazing.
I think that's the most amazing thing that goes on in a pediatric oncology department, and seeing a 1-year-old or a 2-year-old or a 5-year-old that doesn't even really understand what's happening to them, just tough as nails.
Yeah.
It's like, it gets me like every time.
Yeah.
So at what point did you get news that about transitioning to bone marrow transplant?
Yeah. So that I started treatment in February of 18, and we got down to like September, October of 18, and they'd taken a bone marrow biopsy and looked at it. This was after kind of the main chemo treatments that they had their plan. And it was time to check and see if that all worked. And they came back. I think you had to have 0.001, less than 0.001% of residual disease left to have made it a success. I think I had 0.02% still there. So I missed it by just very little. And they said, we know it's very little, but just to be safe, you don't want to risk this, but just to be safe, we want to put you into a bone marrow transplant ward, and we want to give you a bone marrow transplant. And so, hearing that, when you just hear it, you don't know anything about it, you think, oh my gosh, this is awful. This is like the worst news I could get, but it really isn't. It's actually more good news than bad news. One, it shortened my treatment, my entire treatment by like a year, maybe even 2 years, because it's kind of
it's like a punch in the face to your disease.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, no, we decided we're going to blitzkrieg this thing.
Exactly.
So yeah, I didn't even think about that point. So demystify it a little bit. Other than that, the kind of some of the different things about the treatment. What else what else should maybe people not freak out immediately when they hear bone marrow transplant?
Something I thought of, because my sister and my father are kind of in the medical field. They always are telling me about kidney transplants and other transplant-like things, and that like when this goes on, you're on a medication for the rest of your life, and if you don't take that medication, it's like very problematic. And so that was one of my worries, but they quickly put that to rest, saying, a bone marrow transplant, it's not like that. We actually, the reason we're doing this is to completely get rid of your immune system and put another immune system in someone else's.
Yeah.
And they actually like train the new immune system to not attack you, which is just mind blowing. It's just so crazy to think about, but it's true nowadays, and it's just amazing that they can do something like that.
It's like a little garden, like a little like grow up little immune system.
Their terminology is exactly like that. Like they talk about it. What's the word? Not implanting, but engrafting. Like it's literally like them being planted inside your bones, the new cells being planted inside your bones, and flourishing and growing. But all the while, they have to keep your immune system, your old immune system, anything that's left of it, suppressed, so that they don't fight each other or anything like that. The first month of that was probably the worst.
Conditioning,
that was the worst out of everything of my whole life. That was the worst month of my life. Just because
what were some of the things you had to go through for
chemotherapy? They bomb you. They get rid of everything. They like set a nuke off inside of you in bone marrow transplant, just because you got to get rid of everything. Nothing can be left. So you get radiation, full body radiations. You get intense chemotherapy, and that all happens within like a week. They bring you down to like complete zero.
Yeah.
So that first month of just being pounded, and I feel like I'm just got hit by a bus. That was the worst. And those were some of the days where I just feel like I'd have a feeding tube in my nose. Like, it sounded weird.
So we had a little technical issue, but from this point over, we hopped onto Skype. So the sound quality is a little different, but it's still a great conversation. So keep listening. It starts in 3, 2, 1.
Okay. So you said you felt like you'd been hit by a bus. What were some of the other physical effects that you had during that?
I lost a lot of muscle, since you feel so bad you don't want to get up and walk around. Even more than the first month of chemo, just the chemo treatment. You feel like you can't move. Like, it's a very weird feeling. I wouldn't wish it on anybody. You lose muscle. I got like C. diff and stuff like that. So my intestinal system was all whack. You don't want to eat. You lose your appetite. It got so bad they had to stick a feeding tube down my nose and my stomach, which I hated every minute of it.
I can only imagine.
And I ended up like, it came out once, and they had to redo it. It came out. I was like, I begged the doctor. I was like, please take this out. Please. He's like, okay, you got to start eating. Like, you got to eat and drink. You have to do it. And I was like, I'll do anything. And that's when I found out, like, one of the biggest positives for me, which was my allergies changed because of the immune system. So before, I was allergic to peanuts, but after this transplant, I was no longer allergic to peanuts. And so he told me to eat. I was like, okay, what do I eat? Just keep eating chicken tenders? He's like, do you like Reese's peanut butter cups? And I was like, I've never had one. I've been allergic to peanuts my whole life. And he's like, I'm about to change your life.
That's so funny.
So my mom got me like this big bag of Reese's, and I just ate like 10 of them.
Like throw up. You eat so much Reese's.
So I ate the peanut butter, and then he gave me a Gatorade, and he told me to take they had the pill cups, which are like 10 milliliters, and he said, every 30 minutes I want you take a shot of Gatorade. I was like, okay.
Having like a power hour of Gatorade.
Yeah. So I set a timer on my phone, and I started putting them back. So that was really the changing point in my treatment, where I said, I might not be feeling the best, but if I want to get better, I got to start, forcing myself to do these kind of things that will make it better in the long run, even if I don't want to do them, like eating, walking around, So, yeah.
That's where you felt like you took the driver's wheel for real for the last bit, huh?
Yeah.
So
I'll let it, take me out, and not be who I am.
Yeah. I also remember at that point you had to be rehospitalized and you were cutting it really close to being able to go home for Christmas.
It was I got to go home before Thanksgiving.
Oh, maybe was it Thanksgiving?
It was before Thanksgiving, and I'm pretty sure I got to do Thanksgiving, and the next day I went back in the hospital. Not Thanksgiving. I didn't eat much, but it was nice to be home for that couple days. And then I went back in for like a week or two, and then got to go home, and I stayed there for quite a while, which was nice.
You finally discharged. You're finally done with transplant. And now what does your life look like as far as, after a transplant immediately and then now? How often are you doing checkups, and what does your life look like differently now?
So when I got out and I knew I was going to stay home for a while, it was 2 doctor's visits a week, and I'd get platelets or blood whenever I needed them. That changed after like a month or two to just once a week, and the transfusions started to die down, and that went to every 2 weeks, and then now I'm every month. And it would be a regular doctor's visit, but I had so many transfusions that my iron levels are really high, and they want to take them down naturally. So what they do is I basically donate blood to the trash can. They take out 5 milliliters of blood and they throw it away, and they give me back saline so my blood pressure stays fine. But so I go in once a month to do that, and kind of the day after I'm still kind of tired after losing all that blood. So, but it's once a month, and I see it as kind of a positive, so I can go back, see everybody that I'm good friends with, and
that's great.
Mm-hmm.
So out of all of that, I definitely want to bring up the whole prom and the band, but what are some other of the top experiences for you that, you just talked to me about your Make-A-Wish and going to Hawaii. What are all of the things that you would have never thought that you would have all of these rich experiences through something so terrible?
So yeah, like I said, I didn't have a Make-A-Wish because I had turned 18.
Oh, true.
Months before I got diagnosed, so I missed it by that much. But there's another foundation, the Nicholas Reichel Foundation, which is based in my hometown in Illinois. And
that's cool.
I don't know. We don't know if somebody gave us the information about it or somebody nominated us for it. But they got in contact with us and they said, we want to fulfill you a wish. And so I kind of made the joke and said it's not a Make-A-Wish, it's a Make-A-Request.
I like that.
It is. So I made a request. And I requested to go to Hawaii with my family and play a round of golf there. And
That's so great.
Last November of 2019. My whole family got to go. Me, my dad, my mom, my sister, her husband, and my nephew. We all got and we stayed right on the beach and like, and oh my goodness, it was just so beautiful. We had such a blast.
What golf course did you go to?
It's called Alawai, and it's literally right in town. It's a little municipal. Like there's streets all around it, which I'd never played a course like that, which was really weird. And it had a fantastic view of Diamond Head, that huge mountain that's right next to Lake. It was so beautiful. And the golf course actually surprised me by getting Mark Rolfing, who is a Golf Channel caster. He'll go follow around groups on in tournaments and stuff and give them like color commentary about it. And I'd been a fan of him, and he lives on Maui. And so they'd asked him if he would come over and visit with me for a couple holes while I played. And the funny thing is, I had already met him a couple months prior, because I also got to take a tour of the Golf Channel studios thanks to the For a Day Foundation.
Oh, wow.
So they gave me a full tour of their stages and where they recorded shows. And right as we were leaving, one of their big shows is Golf Central, which is basically their talk show about, they speculate and talk about future golf and stuff like that. And they were all in the newsroom, kind of getting ready, talking about their points that they were going to talk about. And I got to meet with them before I left. And Mark Rolfing was there.
That's
and
funny.
Me and him had a connection because he went through cancer as well. But it wasn't leukemia, but it was something with his lymph nodes. I'm not exactly sure which one it was. That connection. So we had met there, and he comes out of the golf course. I shake his hand. I say, "It's nice to see you again." He's like, "Again?" And I was like, "Yeah, we met at a Golf Channel tour a couple months ago." And he's like, "Oh my goodness, of course, I remember you." So
that's hilarious.
Yeah, we got talking while I was playing the round, and he every year my dad volunteers at the Arnold Palmer Invitational here in Orlando, and I usually go with his free passes, and I go and see the top players that come there. And he mentioned that we talked about, I live in Orlando, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I go there whenever the tour goes there for the Arnold Palmer Invitational." I was like, "Oh, I go there every year. My dad volunteers there." And he said, "You know what? The next time you're there, I'll take you in the booth that we record stuff in. I'll show you around and get you behind the desk."
Cool.
And another thing that came out of it, this horrible journey, but the great thing that came out of it was I'm going to the Masters in this April.
Awesome.
Which for a golfer, that's winning a lot. That is like the top. Go to Augusta National in the Masters on Sunday, no less.
Oh, wow.
So I hope I see something good there. But I told him I was going there, and he said, "I'll get you in there too. I'll bring you to the." And they have beautiful sets there, and he said, "I'll get you behind there and maybe meet a couple golfers and stuff like that." So that's probably one of the biggest things.
Wow.
That's out of this.
Yeah, and then my memory is weird about it, but didn't like Billy Joel's trumpeter or something send you like a FaceTime message or something like that? What was that?
Actually, that's a funny story. It has to do with you too. So while I was in the hospital, I sometimes listen to music, and whenever you'd come in, we'd try to do an old gospel song, and we'd try to do like a kind of contemporary fun song. And I remember I just listened to, for the first time, New York State of Mind by Billy Joel. I remember you played it. I just said Billy Joel. I didn't say what song I wanted to sing or anything, and you just started playing New York State of Mind, and I was like, immediately, I knew the words, and we sang along to it. We recorded it. It was awesome. And that kind of like set me on the path of loving Billy Joel. Like, he's my favorite artist right now. I listen to the car all the time, and I know most of the words to this song. It's something me and my dad bond about. And so his trumpet player is just like amazing. He played Peter Ferguson before in one of his bands earlier, and he's been with Billy Joel for I think over 10 years. And so my dad looked him up without telling me, and he looked up his manager and said to his manager, "Hey, my son has leukemia, but he's really digging Carl. His name is Carl Fisher. He's really digging Carl's trumpet playing, and he loves Billy Joel. Do you think he could like send him a message or something?" So like a couple months later, we get a video from Carl on the stage during the sound check saying, "Hey Max, we're thinking of you. I hope you feel better. We're out here in Wrigley Field, like Chicago, my hometown, and it was just so awesome to have that and make a personalized video for me, and that was awesome. And then he actually lives here in Florida, and he did a kind of through the years trumpet players kind of concert with a small band, and it was a private recording and performance in Tampa, and the manager invited us to go, and we got like front row seats, and it was just so awesome, him screaming that loud thing and just sitting right in front of it, hearing all of it, like your chest would shake with it. Oh my goodness, that was awesome.
Wow.
Musical experience.
And then probably, I mean, literally your story is just another one of the awesome examples and like why I do what I do. And I worked in Orlando for 4 years, and one of my best memories was putting together, since the hospital every year for this will be the 4th year has done a prom, and it started for oncology patients only, and now it has grown to a lot of different teenagers with different chronic illnesses. And I had helped them set it up every year. It's run through Child Life and some of my best friends that worked there. And I pitched it. I think I remember I told Zuli, I was like, if I got a band of people together, you think we could play at prom? I was like, I think I've got a few people. And I was like, I know if I can get Max to be one of my like cornerstones that I can lean on. I was like, I think I can recruit a couple more people. And you were the only one that I would say is like started at a professional level at your instrument. We had some people like that were learning the keyboard like for that gig, which it was so awesome and it went so great. But tell me about that whole process and what that was like for kind of like a different shade of music therapy.
It was awesome to see all these kids coming together with all these different talents, and like you said, some people were learning the instrument that like for the first time during that like week of practice that we had. And it was just so amazing for them to learn it. They learned it like really well. Like it sounded great.
It sounded amazing.
It really did. And I was there to play, but we were like discussing music and stuff. I was really on the outside kind of, because I don't listen to a lot of kind of the new music of the day. And so when everybody's saying like all these songs they want to sing, I just kind of like stay quiet. And whenever you finalize the list, I listened to all the songs, and I learned them, and we played them so great, and everybody had such heart singing them, and it was a very cool experience.
Yeah, it was probably one of my favorite things that I was able to be a part of. And just for me, seeing all of these people who used to have that label patient are there, and they are performers, they are artists, they are, at least at the lowest entertainment. So I think to me that was all about like these people that you used to stamp patient on now are look at them performing their health, look at them standing up big on a stage, and look at them playing the music that you're dancing to, that you're enjoying, for staff members crying. They're so It was great. It was great. And yet another example where Max gets me on the news is what that is. So, um,
Uh,
so you're back in school. What's your life look like right now before we kind of wrap things up for today?
I'm taking the class that I was in when I got diagnosed, so that's microbiology, and I'm taking that 3 days a week. Um, and dealing with as a person with like a fairly new immune system, like as a like a immune system like a toddler's, I'm like dealing with E. coli and growing E. coli and staph,
Ooh,
and it's really kind of on the line, but
living on the edge. Yeah, yeah.
But oh my gosh, it's so much fun, and I'm glad to be back. Um, I'm going to apply for my for the UCF nursing program this fall, and hopefully graduate with my bachelor's in 2.5 years. And my goal is to go back to the ward I was treated in, and use my experience with other kids that are going through what I went through.
Yeah.
And I hope to work there, I think for like 4 or so years, and then go back to school. And my main goal would be to be a nurse practitioner for either pediatric bone marrow, or pediatric oncology. That would be kind of my end goal.
Man, that's so inspiring. You were already doing this path when all this happened, so it's so awesome that you still want to give back. And whenever you want to switch to music therapy, you just let me know. But I always have to get that jab in there. But so what would you say for anyone that's going through anything similar when they get the knock on the door and they're skeptical about a person with a guitar in their back and a jingling Office Depot cart? What would you tell that person?
One, you never know until you try. Just give it a chance. And don't like kind of do it like halfway. Give it your all, and I guarantee you'll start having fun and you'll start enjoying it. Music is just such a great way to not only escape, but to express what you're feeling. It's just, and it's also really fun to, when you like teach a ukulele class to the ward. I remember doing that, having 5 or 6 other patients in there, and we're all kind of learning the same thing at the same time, and we're bonding as we're going through this horrible time in our lives. And it was really cool, and it really kind of brought our minds off things, and gave us something, not only something to do, but something to kind of look forward to.
Yeah. Well, the last couple of questions I just want to ask is, since you're in a different role than a lot of the people that I am interviewing, the last couple of questions I always ask are, how do you inspire others to make more music? And why do you inspire others to make more music? And you're still in this role where you're encouraging people, and you're a musician who's interacting purely for the love of it, purely for giving back to your church, purely for just playing the trumpet and the love of singing and the love of music. So what do you hope people get out of your music, and what do you hope to inspire other people?
I hope when someone listens to what I'm putting out there, I hope that they take away that even though that this person has gone through this horrible time, and sometimes the days I looked terrible, the things that looked good, the days of bad news, which there were many, even though I had all those experiences, that I came out of it stronger than who I was. I came out stronger than who I was. I came out more empathetic than what I was, and so I hope I can express that in my music, and I hope that people can see that and inspire others to do the same.
Great. That weight of experience, huh? You've lived a lot in just a couple of years, for sure.
definitely.
Well, before I let you go, we're gonna go through the quick 6 questions. These are just quick little short questions. You can answer them as long as you want, but they're just supposed to be rapid fire.
Cool.
So pull open your phone, whether it's Spotify or Apple Music. Tell us what was the last thing you listened to.
Last thing is to Scenes from an Italian Restaurant, Billy Joel.
There you go. You weren't kidding. Yeah, it was Billy Joel. There you go. Good. This can be as philosophical as you would like. Oh, go ahead.
That's my song of all time, by the way.
That's your favorite?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll listen to it tonight. Be as philosophical or as just plain as you want, but what if you were an instrument, what would you be?
Ooh. Instrument. I probably want to be a piano. You know, that's an instrument I've like long. If I had a genie and I wish I could play like something perfectly, I'd pick the piano any day of the week, just
Great.
because you can be kind of melodramatic with it. You can do so many things with it. It's just a catch-all instrument. So I'd be the piano.
Great. What's something that's been inspiring you recently?
You know, while I was going through this, a person that also lives in my town, his name is Dustin Totoli. He got he's a little bit older than me. He got diagnosed with the same thing, almost the same thing that I had. And by a couple weeks, we went through almost the same thing. And yet our journeys were very different. At the end of his treatment, he also had to get a bone marrow transplant, but the bone marrow transplant didn't work as well as they thought it would. And he had to go back, and he got many more intense chemo treatments. And, you know, he was just this guy. He was just married. He travels the world with his wife, who is native Spaniard. And I think she's Spanish or Italian. I don't know. Sorry if I messed that up, but they, and you know, it just got stopped like that, and you know, that must have been tough for him. And he inspired me a lot because he had the same, you know, mentality as I did. You know, always being positive, putting your faith in God, and even though he had much worse conditions than I had, and I think it's an inspiration now that a couple days ago he was declared in remission, which
that's so great.
Such a great thing to hear, and it really am happy for him, and I feel inspired by him.
That's great. This could be the next one. This could be anything in your whole life. What do you feel like is a life hack or a pro tip that you practice that you feel like other people should know?
You know, I've playing in the bands that I've played in. When I get a piece of music, I listen to that song or whatever it is on repeat for hours, back to front. I sing it in my sleep. I know it. I know my part. I know other instruments' parts. You know, and that really helps you. You know, blend together as a band. And I think that's probably one of the most important things I've learned musically.
Sweet. I'm hoping you say Reese's, but what's your go-to junk food now?
Oh, junk food though. I'd say candy-wise Reese's.
Okay.
But I'm a pizza man till I die.
Nice.
It's comfort food, especially Chicago-style deep dish.
There you go.
Just a pie of cheese.
Yeah. Where's your favorite Chicago spot? Is it Lou Malnati's? Is it somewhere else?
A place in my hometown, Rochelle, Illinois, called Vince's. They don't do deep dish, I don't think, Maybe they do. I've never had their deep dish, but their thin Chicago-style pizza, that would be my final meal if I could choose. Oh, my goodness.
Vince's. You heard it here. That's
So
awesome. And then lastly, what person, project, or organization would you like to shout out?
definitely the Nicholas Reichel Foundation. They grant wishes for kids that are outside the range of Make-A-Wish, and their story is so touching. Nicholas Reichel was Illinois cancer patient, and he, just like me, just missed the cut deadline of Wish, and sadly his cancer got the best of him, and one of his dying wishes to his mother was, I want you to make a foundation that helps kids like me get a wish, like I didn't have. I want to make that happen for kids. And so
that is amazing.
It's amazing, yeah.
Gosh, man. Well, it's been so awesome to just catch up. It's been great to hear about being an uncle and being back in school. And I think that the greatest thing ever is just to hear, what your life is doing normally now, and just to look across a Skype screen and see a head full of hair over there. It's just, yeah, like you even need a haircut almost. That's amazing. That's good. Well, if people want to, follow you or follow anything about your story, where would you direct people on the internet?
So since the beginning, my family has kept up a Facebook page, Prayers for Maxwell Jones. You can go back and you can look at my entire journey, see the videos that me and Chris did together, us singing and playing instruments together.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's a great page. And so it's just a real, if you're ever feeling down, definitely, I go back and I look at where I've come from, and it brings me up on a down day.
Yeah, hard to be ungrateful if you flip through that, huh? Cool. Well, Max, it's been so awesome. Thanks again. We're signing off, everybody, and just remember, give more grace, share more love, and make more music.
All right, we're going to end this episode a little different for you today. I hope you enjoyed that chat, and to end it, we're going to cap it off with a recording that we did at our time at Florida Hospital, where Max did an experience called lyric substitution, where we rewrote "They Can't Take That Away From Me" and changed the lyrics to be about his cancer journey and this walk through that. So without further ado, here's Max singing, playing trumpet, and me accompanying him on the guitar for "They Can't Take That Away From Me."
It could take your appetite and take your energy, but the will to fight, no, it can't take that away from me. It could take your hair and fog your memory, but my God is there. No, it can't take that away from me. May we never meet again, but if push comes to shove, I'll still always keep a memory of the way I learned to fight and how I hit those greens, the way it changed my life. No, it can't take that away from me. No, it can't take that away from me. push comes to shove, I'll still always, always keep a memory of the way I learned to fight and how I hit the green, the way it changed my life. No, no, it can't take that away from me. No, it can't take that away from me. No, it can't take that away. No, it can't take that